The day I caught my wife sleeping with my best friend, I thought my life was over. Then I found out my best friend was secretly destroying my sister's life too. And I swore I wouldn't stop until I took everything from him. I was wrong about a lot of people in my life. I was wrong about my wife, Emily. I was wrong about my best friend, Ryan. And I was definitely wrong about my family. Because when I exposed their affair, nobody stood beside me. Not my parents. Not even my sister, Jessica, who was married to Ryan. Instead of being angry at him, she begged me not to ruin her marriage. She cried and told me she couldn't afford to lose him. I remember staring at her, wondering how she could defend the man who had been sleeping with my wife behind both of our backs. But Jessica wasn't the only one protecting him. My parents kept telling me to let it go and move on. Emily filed for divorce within weeks and demanded half of everything, including the house I had spent 12 years paying for. Ryan moved into her apartment almost immediately, and suddenly I became the villain. Friends stopped calling me. Relatives whispered that maybe Emily left me because I wasn't a good husband. I lost my marriage, my reputation, and nearly my entire family in less than 6 months. Ryan acted like he had won. He drove around in a new Mercedes, posted smiling family pictures online, and pretended he was a good man while I sat alone trying to understand how my entire life had collapsed so quickly. But pain changes people. While everyone thought I was drowning in heartbreak, I started paying attention. Strange business trips Ryan never explained. Cash deposits that didn't match his income. Calls he used to hide whenever I walked into the room. At first I ignored it. Then one night, while sorting through old documents Jessica had accidentally left at my house years ago, I found copies of contracts, shell companies, and secret bank transfers with Ryan's signature on them. My hands started shaking as I read page after page. The affair that destroyed my marriage suddenly became the smallest lie Ryan had ever told me, because the man who stole my wife had been hiding crimes that could destroy his entire world forever. I wish I could tell you. I immediately went to the police after finding those documents, but I didn't. I sat in my apartment until 3 in the morning, staring at papers spread across my kitchen table, trying to convince myself there had to be another explanation. Ryan wasn't just my former best friend. He was practically my brother for 15 years. We started businesses together, celebrated birthdays together, and trusted each other with everything. But the numbers didn't lie. The shell companies were fake. The money transfers led to accounts hidden under other names, and the deeper I looked, the worse it got. Millions of dollars had quietly disappeared through fraudulent contracts and fake consulting fees. Ryan wasn't just cheating on his wife and sleeping with mine. He had built an entire life on lies. What scared me the most was realizing my sister might have known pieces of the truth all along. Suddenly, her desperate attempts to protect him made sense. I wanted to expose everything immediately, but I stopped myself. Nobody had believed me when I told them about the affair. If I accused Ryan of financial crimes without undeniable proof, my family would call me bitter and obsessed. So I stayed quiet. I pretended to move on. I stopped arguing with Emily during the divorce. I ignored Ryan's smug smiles whenever I saw him at family gatherings. Everyone thought I was broken. In reality, I was watching. For almost a year, I collected evidence. Every suspicious company, every fake invoice, every hidden property. Ryan had grown arrogant. He believed I was too devastated to fight back. Meanwhile, my own life kept getting worse. Emily and Ryan started openly dating. My parents invited them to holidays and stopped inviting me. The house I had dreamed of raising children in was sold during the divorce, and I walked away with almost nothing. Some nights I sat alone wondering if revenge was even worth it. Then something happened that changed everything. Jessica called me at 2 in the morning, crying so hard I could barely understand her. Ryan had disappeared for 3 days. Creditors were calling nonstop. Their accounts were nearly empty. And for the first time in years, my sister whispered the words I never thought I'd hear. I think Ryan has been lying to all of us. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath because I had been waiting a long time for my family to finally see the man I had discovered months ago. Jessica showed up at my apartment before sunrise, and I barely recognized her. The confident woman who had spent years defending Ryan was gone. Her mascara was smeared, her hands were shaking, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. She sat on my couch and confessed something that made my stomach turn. Ryan had been controlling every part of her life for years. He handled all the finances, all the investments, and every major decision. Whenever she asked questions, he called her paranoid. Whenever she pushed back, he reminded her that nobody would believe her over him. Then 3 days earlier, he disappeared. His phone went straight to voicemail. The bank accounts she thought held their savings were nearly empty. Their credit cards had been maxed out. And worst of all, debt collectors had started calling her nonstop. Jessica looked at me with tears in her eyes and whispered, "I think he's been stealing from me too." I wanted to say I told you so. I wanted to remind her how she chose Ryan over me after he destroyed my marriage. But looking at her sitting there, completely broken, I couldn't do it. Because for the first time, I realized Ryan hadn't just betrayed me. He had manipulated everyone around him, including my own sister. I walked into my office and brought out the folders I had been hiding for over a year. Jessica's face turned pale as she flipped through fake contracts, hidden bank transfers, and documents proving Ryan had secretly moved money through shell companies under fake names. She kept shaking her head, refusing to believe the man she loved was capable of all this. Then she saw one transfer that made her stop breathing for a second. Ryan had secretly mortgaged properties she co-owned without telling her and used the money to fund his other businesses. Jessica burst into tears. At that moment, my anger toward her disappeared. She wasn't Ryan's partner anymore. She was another victim. But as heartbreaking as that realization was, the next discovery terrified me even more. Hidden deep in Ryan's files was a list of names, payments, and business partners that included someone I never expected to see. I stared at the page again, hoping I had read it wrong, but I hadn't. My own father's name was right there beside Ryan's. And suddenly, everything I thought I knew about my family started falling apart all over again. I must have read that document 20 times, hoping my father's name was there by mistake. It wasn't. The payment records went back nearly 7 years. My father, the man who had lectured me my entire life about honesty and integrity, had quietly invested money into Ryan's shell companies and received profits in return. I couldn't breathe. Suddenly, his refusal to condemn Ryan after the affair made horrifying sense. He wasn't protecting Ryan because he liked him. He was protecting himself. Jessica grabbed the papers from my hands, and when she saw our father's signature, she started crying again. "No," she kept repeating. "Dad would never do this." But I had already stopped, telling myself comforting lies. That afternoon, I drove to my parents' house carrying every document I had collected. My father was sitting on the porch drinking coffee like it was any normal day. I dropped the folder on the table in front of him and watched. The color drained from his face as he flipped through the pages. He didn't deny anything, not once. Instead, he closed the folder, looked me in the eyes, and quietly said, "You don't understand how complicated this is." I almost laughed. Complicated? Ryan slept with my wife, stole money from my sister, destroyed my family, and now I was learning my own father had been helping him for years. My mother stood frozen in the doorway, crying silently as the truth unraveled around her. Then my father said something that hurt even more than his betrayal. He admitted that when Emily left me for Ryan, he already knew Ryan was dangerous. But he stayed silent because exposing him would have exposed his own involvement too. In that moment, I realized something terrifying. The people I spent my whole life trying to make proud had sacrificed me to protect themselves. I walked out of that house shaking with anger, and for the first time, I stopped caring about keeping the family together. Ryan had destroyed my marriage. My father had betrayed my trust, and now I had enough evidence to ruin both of them forever. But before I could decide what to do next, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered, and after a few seconds of silence, I heard Ryan's voice, calm, confident, almost amused. Then he said the words that made my blood run cold. "I know what you've been doing, and if you expose me, someone you love is going to pay for it." Ryan hung up before I could say a single word, but his threat stayed in my head all night. I wanted to believe he was bluffing, yet deep down I knew exactly how dangerous he was. This was a man who betrayed his wife, stole from people who trusted him, destroyed my marriage, and manipulated my family for years without feeling an ounce of guilt. I immediately drove to Jessica's house, terrified something had happened to her or the kids. When I arrived, she opened the door with red eyes and trembling hands. She had received the same call. Ryan told her to stay quiet, stop talking to me, and pretend everything was normal if she wanted to protect her children. That was the moment fear turned into rage. I wasn't dealing with a selfish cheater anymore. I was dealing with someone willing to use innocent kids as weapons. Jessica finally broke down and admitted everything she had hidden from me. Ryan had been emotionally abusive for years. He controlled the money, monitored her phone, and constantly threatened to take the children away if she ever left him. She stayed because she was scared and ashamed. Hearing that shattered me, because while I was busy hating my sister, she had been living in fear the entire time. I promised her something that night. Ryan would never control her again. The next morning, I contacted one of the best attorneys in Chicago and handed him every piece of evidence I had collected. He spent hours reviewing the files before looking at me and saying, "This isn't just fraud. This could destroy him completely." For the first time in years, I felt hope, but Ryan wasn't waiting around either. Within days, federal investigators started contacting people connected to his businesses. His partners began disappearing. News spread that several companies were under investigation. Then Emily showed up at my apartment unexpectedly. She looked terrified. Gone was the arrogant woman who left me for Ryan. She sat across from me and whispered words I never imagined hearing. "Ryan lied to me too. And there's something even you don't know." I stared at her, feeling my heart pound harder with every second, because if Emily was scared of Ryan now, then whatever secret she was hiding had to be bigger than anything I had uncovered so far. Emily sat across from me, twisting her fingers so tightly her knuckles turned white. I had imagined this moment 100 times, my ex-wife coming back after destroying my life, but I never imagined she would look this terrified. "Ryan has been hiding money overseas," she said quietly. "Not just his money, your father's too." I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. She told me Ryan had been preparing to disappear for months. Fake passports, offshore accounts, hidden properties under other names, and the reason he suddenly vanished was because federal investigators were getting too close. But then Emily said something that chilled me to my core. Ryan wasn't planning to run alone. He had been gathering evidence against everyone involved, including my father, and if he got arrested, he was ready to take them all down with him. Emily admitted she discovered his plan by accident. When she confronted him, Ryan threatened her too. He told her if she ever spoke, she would lose everything. That's when she finally realized the man she left me for never loved her at all. He only used people until they became liabilities. I should have felt satisfied seeing her regret. Instead, I just felt exhausted. Too many lives had already been destroyed because of Ryan. I asked Emily one question. "Where is he?" She hesitated, then handed me a small notebook she had secretly taken from his office months earlier. Inside were account numbers, passwords, addresses, and names of people helping him hide money. It was the missing piece I'd been searching for. My attorney nearly fell out of his chair when he saw it. Within days, the notebook was turned over to federal authorities. Search warrants followed. Bank accounts were frozen. News channels started reporting on a massive financial fraud investigation involving several businesses connected to Ryan. Then came the moment I never expected. My father called me crying. The same man who chose Ryan over me was begging for my help. He admitted everything and asked if there was any way to fix this. I closed my eyes and remembered every night I spent alone after losing my marriage, my home, and my family. Then I answered honestly, "I don't know if this family can ever be fixed." And as I hung up the phone, flashing lights appeared outside Ryan's luxury condo, because after years of running from the truth, his world was finally collapsing. The morning Ryan was arrested, I didn't feel victorious. I thought I would celebrate. I thought watching the man who destroyed my marriage walk out of his condo in handcuffs would heal something inside me. But standing across the street as federal agents searched his home, I realized revenge doesn't erase pain. It only gives you the chance to finally move forward. Within weeks, the full truth exploded across the news. Ryan had stolen millions through fake companies, hidden money overseas, forged documents, and manipulated nearly everyone around him. Several of his business partners were charged alongside him. My father avoided prison by fully cooperating with investigators, but his reputation was destroyed forever. He spent months apologizing to me, admitting he was so afraid of losing money that he lost his own son instead. For a long time, I wasn't ready to forgive him. Some wounds don't disappear overnight. As for Emily, she testified against Ryan and quietly disappeared from my life afterward. There was no dramatic reunion, no second chance. Too much damage had been done. Jessica divorced Ryan immediately and fought for custody of her children. I stood beside her through every court hearing because, despite everything that happened between us, she was still my sister. And for the first time in years, we started rebuilding our relationship honestly, without lies, without secrets. A year later, my life looked nothing like the one I had before. The house was gone. The marriage was gone. Many relationships were gone too. But strangely, I was happier than I had been in years, because I finally understood something I wish I had learned earlier. The people who betray you don't actually take your future away. They only force you to build a better one without them. Sometimes I still think about that night I caught my wife with my best friend and how I believed my life was over. I smile now because I was wrong. That wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of the man I was always meant to become. And if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that the truth may take time, but sooner or later, it always finds its way into the light. If this story kept you hooked, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe because sometimes the most unbelievable stories are the ones that actually happen.